right, major developments tonight in the massive FISA abuse scandal. We'll start there. Now we are getting one step closer to holding top-level Obama, FBI, DOJ, deep state officials accountable for what is a severe constitutional abuse. Now, they completely have shredded the Fourth Amendment rights of the American people, and people could and should end up behind bars. Now, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, thankfully, is now saying tonight the Department of Justice will be investigating these FISA abuses. Let's watch.
We believe the Department of Justice must adhere to the highest standards in the FISA Court. And yes, it will be investigated. And I think that's just the appropriate thing. The Inspector General will take that as one of the matters he'll deal with.
Finally, we have been unpeeling this story for over a year, while, of course, the liberal media, they've been lying to you, obsessing over so-called Trump-Russia collusion, which is nothing more to this point than a conspiracy theory that they have created out of thin air. There's no evidence. And by the way, as for the extensive, unprecedented Obama-era FISA abuses, we now have a mountain of incontrovertible and corroborated facts and evidence. Liberal Congressman Adam Schiff's his counter memo on FISA abuses has actually confirmed everything that we have been reporting on and everything that is also in the two Republican memos on this scandal. Now, that's why the mainstream media has completely been ignoring what is inside the Schiff memo. It doesn't fit their narrative, and more importantly, it doesn't damage President Trump, which of course is their ultimate goal. Here's everything that the Schiff memo corroborates from the Nunes and Grassley-Graham memos. This completely unverified, Clinton bought and paid for dossier that used Russian government sources made up, in fact, a large part of that FISA application to surveil Trump campaign associate Carter Page. Adam Schiff actually writes that a section of the FISA application references parts of the phony dossier about Carter Page meeting with Russians in Moscow in June of 2016. Page, by the way, is denying these lies and that they'd never been proven true. I think Mueller would have arrested him by now, or at least charged him. Now, remember, the Grassley and Graham memo said that the Russian dossier made up the bulk of this FISA application. Now, Schiff didn't say that, but yeah, he admits the dossier was used. And the Schiff memo also corroborates that, in fact, the FBI and the DOJ lied and purposely and maliciously misled a FISA judge about Clinton and the DNC paying over $12 million full of the Russian dossier of unverified lies and propaganda. Can you believe this is happening in our country? Now, Schiff's memo actually quotes a part of the FISA application about the dossier having political motivations. But here's the thing. The application never bothered to mention that it was Hillary or the DNC that paid for that dossier. The FBI knew this, but they purposely hid it from the FISA judge, not rank-and-file FBI, that higher echelon that we talk about. They used it to get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Here's another key point that the Schiff memo confirms, that the FISA application, yeah, they did mention a Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff that he wrote about Carter Page. Schiff, however, lied about the fact that the judge was never made aware that the source for the Yahoo article was Christopher Steele. Now, the Republican memos, they actually detailed how this is a major problem because that means that the information was never verified by two independent sources since Steele was the only source. So those are points that the Schiff memo actually confirms. And here are the key facts that the Schiff memo flat out lies about. The congressman claims that the Trump campaign was never spied on. That is a lie, 100% false, and here's why. When the federal government granted a FISA warrant, that gives them access to every one of Carter Page's old emails, old text messages, and they know every phone call he made, which could date back to when he was with the Trump campaign. Now, Schiff claims that former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, that he never testified, that without the dossier, they never would have been a FISA warrant application. But the Schiff memo never offers any proof, which likely means it doesn't exist, and my sources confirm that, in fact, McCabe said that. And Schiff does admit that Steele was fired by the FBI for these media leaks, but what Schiff doesn't say is that Steele lied to the FBI about his media contacts. And the Schiff memo tries to play up Christopher Steele's credibility by saying, well, he's worked with the FBI in the past. Yeah, they just fired him. Here's the problem. Schiff never mentions that Steele was using Russian government sources and that the information was never verified independently by the FBI or the DOJ or by anybody. So it should never have been used for any FISA warrant application at all. And finally, Schiff omits this critical piece of evidence. According to our reporting, the dossier put the FISA application over the top. In other words, we've been telling you that the first time they tried, it failed. The FISA application was denied. But then the dossier, well, they added that to get the help that was needed so they could, quote, get it approved. And then they lied to the judge. And what it all means is now we have 3 congressional memos that prove a key fact. The FBI lied to a FISA judge about Clinton and the DNC financing the dossier, which was filled with uncorroborated Russian lies, and they did it to spy on the Trump campaign. The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, I'm glad he's moving. He needs to move quickly. Everybody involved needs to be held accountable. We need to restore the rule of law. All right, also breaking tonight, we have more news about Broward County and the Sheriff's Department missing countless warning signs about the Florida school shooter and then utterly failing to properly respond to this deadly rampage. Now, this is one huge, massive, giant bureaucratic failure after another in this case. And Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel, well, he's flat out refusing to take any responsibility. Instead, he's blaming pretty much everybody else. According to reports, this is almost unconscionable. 4 of Sheriff Israel's deputies did not enter the building while the school shooting was happening. One deputy, a school resource officer on the scene, his name is Scott Peterson, he was armed with a gun and a bulletproof vest. He took up a position outside the building while the shooting was taking place. One student described Peterson as standing still as he heard shot after shot being fired. Now, Peterson's defending his actions and ended up resigning. And what we're now learning is that the first member of law enforcement to enter the school, they were actually from the Coral Springs Police Department. Those officers rushed right in. Broward County deputies, they took up a defensive posture and position outside. And also new tonight, Fox News reporting the Broward County Sheriff's Department also prevented the EMTs from entering the school. And there are questions about, well, you know, would it be proper protocol? Students and teachers were shot and dying and bleeding. Now, sources are telling our own Laura Ingram that Broward County Sheriff deputies, they were told not to go into the school unless their body cameras were turned on, even though those deputies apparently didn't even have them. And Sarah Carter, breaking news tonight, reporting that under Sheriff Scott Israel's leadership, well, apparently there have been at least 40 investigations into that department and misconduct. We did reach out to the sheriff's office for comment on Sarah's story. We haven't heard back. This is all one huge, massive, giant blunder after another while students and teachers were being slaughtered inside the school. And sadly, that's just part of the story. We know the FBI was alerted not once but twice about Nicholas Cruz and his sinister intentions, including weeks before the massacre. One unidentified woman told authorities that she feared Cruz would, quote, get into a school and just shoot the place up. The Naples Daily News reported that Broward County Sheriff's Office received 18 specific warning calls about Nicholas Cruz since 2008. And law enforcement, imagine this, visited this kid's home a whopping 39 times in a 7-year period. And we also know Cruz raised all kinds of red flags at school. He wasn't allowed to wear a backpack because of security concerns. And he was ultimately expelled because of his behavior. And, of course, he posted all these disturbing images on social media. Warning signs missed at every single level here. Now, people did the right thing. They saw something. They said something. They alerted authorities. These authorities dropped the ball on a level I can't even comprehend. They didn't do their jobs. They failed this community in Florida. And these officials need to be owning up to their mistakes so it never happens again. And we can fix the problems in the system, prevent future massacres. But that's not the case. You've heard people like Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. He's refusing to own up to his failures. He won't answer key questions. He pats himself on the back and has a general overall lack of sympathy. Watch this.
When did you find out that Deputy Peterson had not gone into the building? How soon after the shooting did you know that?
Not for days.
How many days?
Investigators looked. I'm not sure.
You
Right
didn't look
that
at the
second,
video?
I
1 week after the shooting, you hadn't looked at the video yet?
I looked at the video as soon as our investigators, it wasn't my job to look at the video, it was investigators' job to look at the video.
The families were at the CNN town hall, and you could have disclosed to them.
I couldn't disclose it then because there was no corroboration, Jake. I could only take responsibility for what I knew about. I exercised my due diligence. I've given amazing leadership to this agency.
Amazing leadership? Will you resign?
It was a shame. No, of course I won't resign.
Do you think that if the Broward Sheriff's Office had done things differently, this shooting might not have happened?
Listen, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, O.J. Simpson would still be in the record books.
Obviously, the sheriff is in denial, out of touch with reality. It is why people are now calling on him to resign. Instead of doing everything that we just showed you, Sheriff Israel, he should be apologizing to the victims' families and correcting the issues that didn't stop this mass shooting and his deputies going into that building. Sheriff Israel doesn't appear to be interested in doing any of this. In fact, last week he said that he might not even release the footage showing Deputy Scott Peterson failing to enter the building. Listen to what he says.
We're not going to disclose the video at this time, and we may never disclose the video, depending on the prosecution and the criminal case. But what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in.
Unbelievable. Whatever footage the sheriff has, it should be released to the public. The American people, all of you, and the people of Florida and these families deserve to see it if they want to see it. Now, Sheriff Israel needs to stop trying to save his job, focus on protecting this community that he's supposed to be serving.